Yes, they met. Yes, that was against William's wishes, but there was no sense that I'm getting that Charles laid out the red carpet for Harry.
Imagine flying across the Atlantic, dressing for what should feel like a historic reconciliation, and stepping into Clarence House with hopes of finally repairing a fractured bond, only to leave looking defeated, carrying nothing but the bitter taste of disappointment. That's the reality Prince Harry faced during his latest meeting with King Charles, a meeting that was hyped up as a turning point but ended up lasting less time than a single episode of The Crown. Social media has already turned it into a spectacle, with memes comparing the so-called peace talk to a speed date gone horribly wrong. Photos of Harry's somber exit are being dissected side by side, his expression read as a man who came searching for acceptance and instead walked out empty-handed. What makes this encounter even more fascinating is how it contrasts with what the mainstream headlines are pushing. Many outlets reported a 55-minute sit-down between father and son, a moment that hinted at reconciliation. But insiders tell a different story, one of a meeting that barely stretched beyond 20 minutes of actual conversation, surrounded by security, protocol, and an atmosphere so frosty it felt less like family tea and more like a staged negotiation. And yet, beneath the surface, the details reveal far more than an awkward reunion. They expose the ongoing battle for power, trust, and survival inside the royal family, a battle that leaves Harry increasingly isolated, desperate to hold on to what little influence he has left. This wasn't just a father and son catching up, it was a test, a performance, a clash between a monarch determined to project stability and a prince fighting not just for reconciliation, but perhaps for relevance itself. The question now isn't whether Harry got the answers he wanted, because clearly he didn't. The real question is, did King Charles deliberately shut the door on Harry's final chance at redemption, or did Harry walk straight into a carefully laid royal trap? From the outside, the headlines painted a picture of a respectful 55-minute sit-down, father and son finally sharing tea after more than a year apart. But once the details began trickling out, the story shifted. According to insiders, the actual time Harry and King Charles spent in genuine private conversation was less than 20 minutes. The rest? Layers of protocol, long pauses, security checks, and the kind of awkward waiting that felt more like an official appointment than a family reunion. That timing alone sent social media into overdrive. People compared the encounter to a bad speed date, the sort where you know within the first few minutes that nothing good is coming out of it. One viral post even joked that the king and his son spent more time pouring tea than actually talking to each other. The humor may have been brutal, but it captured the mood perfectly. A meeting billed as monumental, reduced to a blink-and-you-miss-it conversation. And when the teacups were cleared away, it wasn't Charles apologizing for the past or extending an olive branch. It was Harry who ended up offering words of regret. For critics, that detail flipped the script entirely. Instead of a king softening for his son, the optics showed a monarch standing firm while his youngest child tried to claw back some sense of connection. The whole thing left the public wondering whether this was ever meant to be reconciliation at all, or simply another page in a carefully managed royal performance. If Harry had hoped this trip would spark a thaw in family relations, reality hit hard. The bitter truth was visible not only in the brevity of the meeting, but also in the absence of the one person who could have made it truly meaningful: Prince William. Despite being less than 7 miles away, William made it crystal clear that he had no intention of seeing his brother. That silence spoke louder than any headline. For the public, this was the clearest sign yet that the rift between the brothers is not just lingering, it's growing deeper. Once inseparable, now they move in completely different worlds, with William focused on the stability of the monarchy and Harry portrayed as the outsider, constantly trying to claw his way back in. The fact that William chose distance, even when opportunity for closeness presented itself, painted a stark picture. Reconciliation isn't even on his radar. The optics were devastating. A king who kept his meeting with Harry short and formal, and an heir who wouldn't even open the door. It left Harry standing alone, more isolated than ever. It also raised a painful question. If William, the future king, won't even grant his brother a few minutes of his time, what chance does Harry really have at regaining any meaningful place in the royal fold? For all the talk of private tea, insiders say Harry didn't just come to sip Earl Grey and nibble on biscuits. He came armed with a list. A list that, depending on who you ask, looked less like reconciliation and more like negotiation. At the top of that agenda, financial support. Rumors suggest Harry pressed his father for backing to steady his and Meghan's increasingly shaky ventures. To critics, it felt less like a son seeking advice and more like a pitch meeting straight out of Shark Tank. And the requests didn't stop there. Harry also reportedly raised the issue of titles for his children, a sticking point that has divided royal watchers for years. To some, this was about securing recognition and protection for his family. To others, it was a naked attempt to cling to royal clout at a time when his influence is dwindling. Add to that demands for security arrangements, and even whispers about help with mounting legal costs, and suddenly the heart-to-heart began looking like a shopping list fit for a royal accountant. Public opinion was brutal. Memes compared Harry's requests to a kid writing to Santa, with every toy circled in the catalog. Commentators called it urgent, even desperate, noting that the tone wasn't one of humility, but of urgency, as if Harry believed time was running out to secure what he wanted. If that's true, then this wasn't just tea and conversation. This was a last-ditch effort to cash in favors before the royal doors close forever. If Harry thought his list would be met with compromise or fatherly warmth, he miscalculated. Reports say King Charles's reaction was nothing short of glacial. Witnesses described his tone as calm, measured, and utterly unyielding, the kind of silence that cuts deeper than shouting ever could. To those in the room, it was clear. Charles wasn't engaging as a father desperate to mend fences. He was sitting firmly in the role of monarch, weighing protocol and image over emotion. Insiders claim the king leaned heavily on formality, letting tradition and rules speak for him. No fiery debate, no raised voices, just the quiet authority of a man who knew he held all the cards. And with Queen Camilla seated at the table, the balance tilted even further. Her presence made the atmosphere feel less like family reconciliation and more like a high-stakes boardroom negotiation, with the royal couple standing united. Public reaction was merciless. Online, people joked it was like Harry trying to return an unwanted item at a store, only to be told, sorry, no refunds, no exceptions. Others painted Charles as a wall of granite, while Harry looked like someone throwing pebbles at it, hoping for cracks that would never come. In that moment, the dynamic was set. Harry pleading for concessions, Charles answering with silence and steel. And if the king's frostiness was intentional, it worked. The whole exchange left Harry looking less like a prodigal son and more like a petitioner turned away at the palace gates. When the meeting ended, it wasn't the tea or the talk that made headlines. It was Harry's exit. Onlookers outside Clarence House said his walk told the story better than any press release ever could. No smiles, no fatherly embrace, not even a polite wave for the cameras. Just a brisk, almost stormy departure that looked more like a man leaving a failed negotiation than a son leaving his father's home. The internet lit up instantly. Memes compared his quick stride to leaving a group project where you did all the work but still got no credit. Others mocked the timing, a full trip across the Atlantic for a meeting shorter than a single episode of The Crown. One viral post dubbed it the shortest royal comeback tour in history, and the phrase stuck like glue. Even the photos told a brutal story. King Charles was later pictured calm and regal, as though the meeting hadn't ruffled a single feather. Harry, by contrast, was snapped looking tense and frustrated, his expression described by tabloids as a man who had just lost a very awkward argument at a family barbecue. In the optics war, one looked like a monarch in control, the other like a son left out in the cold. Public opinion didn't hold back. Some sympathized with Harry, saying he had been humiliated. Others argued he walked right into a trap, thinking he could charm or pressure his father into giving him what he wanted. Either way, the exit, fast, silent, and empty-handed, became the defining image of the entire 55-minute meeting. The strangest part wasn't just Harry's stormy exit, it was the silence that followed. Clarence House offered no official statement, no smiling photographs, not even a carefully worded line about private family matters. For the palace, silence wasn't a mistake. It was strategy. By saying nothing, Charles allowed the images of Harry's empty-handed departure to speak volumes. But while the palace stayed quiet, the media roared. Within hours, headlines tried to reframe the encounter as a positive step or a symbolic reunion. Some outlets even floated the word reconciliation. Online, though, people weren't buying it. Social media erupted with brutal jokes. One viral post quipped, "If that was reconciliation, then my last awkward Zoom call was a peace treaty." Another compared the entire 55-minute tea to a dentist appointment, except at least with the dentist, you walk out with a free toothbrush. Commentators saw the palace's silence as a clever PR move, one that left Harry holding all the negative optics. Charles, calm and composed, projected the image of a monarch too steady to be rattled, while Harry looked isolated, frustrated, and desperate in the battle of perception. The king didn't need to say a word. The silence itself became the loudest message of all. Harry's empty-handed walkout didn't just land on his shoulders. The ripple effect hit Meghan and their entire brand. In the world of entertainment, deals with Netflix, Spotify, and publishing giants thrive on one thing: access. Without the royal connection, the Sussex story suddenly looks thinner, less dramatic, and harder to sell. Critics were quick to point out that without fresh ties to the palace, the couple's projects risk going stale. As one viral post put it bluntly, "No palace, no plot." Online, the roasting was merciless. People compared the Sussex brand to a reality show with no drama, Survivor, where everyone politely shares coconuts. Others argued Meghan would now be forced to manufacture headlines through carefully timed interviews or leaks just to keep the spotlight burning. Commentators warned that every frosty meeting and every denied request chips away at their ability to market themselves as insiders, leaving them with fewer twists to package for the public. And perhaps the harshest take of all, that Harry's misstep didn't just make him look desperate, it made the entire Sussex enterprise appear fragile. Because in the world of media and influence, perception is power. And after Clarence House, the perception was that Harry and Meghan were no longer players at the royal table, but outsiders trying to knock on a door that may never open again. What many missed in the frenzy of memes and headlines is that this meeting wasn't just about tea, biscuits, or even family drama. It was about power and how the monarchy plays the long game. Charles didn't need fiery words or dramatic gestures. By keeping his ground, refusing concessions, and leaning on silence, he reminded everyone that the crown is bigger than any individual, even his own son. Commentators compared the exchange to a chess match. Harry came in rushing moves, asking for multiple favors at once: financial backing, titles, security, while Charles barely shifted, letting tradition and protocol trap Harry without lifting a finger. One viral post captured the mood perfectly. "You can't outdram an institution that's been perfecting drama for centuries." The optics told the story loud and clear. Charles projected stability, continuity, and control. The image of a monarch who doesn't bend under pressure. Harry, on the other hand, looked like a man scrambling for relevance, struggling to be heard against a system designed to outlast him. And in the battle of power and image, perception can shape legacy far more than any private conversation. In the end, what happened inside Clarence House may only have lasted 55 minutes, but the impact could echo for decades. Royal watchers warn that moments like this aren't just passing headlines, they become part of a legacy. Years from now, no one will remember what biscuits were served or how long the teapot stayed warm. But the image of Prince Harry walking out empty-handed, while King Charles remained calm and unshaken, will stick. Public opinion is already shaping the story. Some frame Harry as the underdog, a son fighting against impossible odds for recognition and security. Others argue he cemented himself as the royal who couldn't win back what he once walked away from. One viral comment summed it up brutally: "History won't remember the 55 minutes, it'll remember the empty exit." For Charles, the moment folds neatly into his image as a monarch who prioritizes duty over drama, showing the public he won't compromise the crown for family politics. For Harry, critics warn it risks becoming yet another chapter in a growing saga of disappointment, painting him as a figure trapped between worlds, too far from the monarchy to hold power, too tied to it to ever truly break free. Legacy isn't built in grand gestures alone, it's etched in these small, brutal moments. And this team may end up defining more than either side ever intended. So here we are. A transatlantic flight, a short tea at Clarence House, and a son walking out with nothing to show for it. To some, it was a bold attempt by Harry to reconnect. To others, it was a humiliating misstep that exposed just how far he's fallen from the inner circle of the monarchy. What's undeniable is the contrast, Charles appearing steady, regal, and unshaken, while Harry looked cornered and restless, leaving the public to decide who truly won the day. And that raises the bigger question. Is Harry still fighting for family, or is he locked in a battle he can never win against an institution that thrives on patience, silence, and centuries of tradition? Every step he takes now will be judged through the lens of this meeting. Every word he speaks will be weighed against the optics of that empty-handed exit. What do you think? Did King Charles quietly deliver the ultimate royal rejection, or did Harry misplay his only chance at reconciliation? Drop your thoughts below, because this is one royal drama that's far from over.